This man may very well be the most recognisable face in AFL footy. Got a huge profile, Bailey Smith, playing outstanding footy at the moment, boys, it has to be said. Your immediate reaction when this story broke about the fact that he'd been caught with an illicit substance, a video then circulating of him indulging in what would appear to be illicit substances as well, and then the confession that came afterwards from Bailey.
Probably the first thought is how is this going to be handled? That's where you go. It's like, what is the response going to be from Bailey and the club? And I mean, I think he's handled this public situation as well as you possibly could.
It's interesting that your first thought's that. It's not shock. It's not surprise. No. It's not. You're not stunned.
No. Well, I think we see the social media. He's a social media sensation, isn't he? And we did see the off-season, some of the things coming out. So clearly he was obviously having a good time. Now, we're not down in his preparation in terms... He's obviously a fit athlete. He looks after himself and prepares well. But he no shock, partly because he's a young man. And he's had really the superstardom thrust upon him in a very short space of time. So I could understand how he'd fall into this. Us traditionalists and old schoolers go, what the hell are you doing? You've been gifted an AFL career. Surely you can stay away from that stuff. But in reality, it's not as easy as that.
And we'll talk about, it's a really difficult... Is there no shock because post-season there's nothing in place that forbids them from indulging? There's no drug testing for a period of time. Is that why there's no shock?
Oh, I mean, probably, because, I've certainly been banging on about that fact within the illicit drug policy for a long time, that, you can do it out of season and it's dealt with differently to in season, even though it's not performance enhancing. So there are all those levers. I mean, the other one is a publicly outed case like Bailey Smith. The player gets suspended and they get, shamed, clearly, but then a policy detected case gets silenced and education. I mean, it's the same. Both instances, the players doing the exact same thing.
We suspect suspension's coming for Bailey too, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, the precedent is there. Yeah. But why? Why are they dealt with so differently?
So I'll answer the question. I want to hear from Bailey Smith first. I want to get your reaction on the back of what he had to say.
I'm a work in progress. We all are. It's disappointing that mine's come out so publicly, but then again, it's my own doing, and I'm stupid enough to, let that happen. It's not a relief, but it almost is, because it's there was a period of my life where I feel ashamed and, I want to forget, but now I feel like I can properly move on. And, I'm an open book. We've all, messed up, and it's unfortunate that I did in that way. And as I said before, I'm excited to grow and continue to be better.
So tick for him and tick for the Bulldogs for the way they got on the front foot here?
I think so. And we've all messed up, especially as a young man. And none of us can understand like I said, being his profile, at a young age. So the ability to cope with that would obviously be very challenging. The strike rule is interesting, isn't it? The 3 strikes policy. Was that the initial motivation for that, Gaz, being brought in? It wasn't a player welfare thing. It was a brand protection thing. That's what is misunderstood.
You think from a game day point of view?
I think from a game day, because if a player gets done with illicit drugs in his system game day, I think it's still 2 years or maybe more, like the Wendell Saylor case a couple of years ago. So this was a safety net for the players, because the AFL were worried that they were going to have all these players start testing positive on game day because it can stay in your system. And then once you test positive on game day, it's out of the AFL's hands. Right. That's where ASADA takes over. So I think the motivation was as much about brand protection for the AFL as it was player welfare.
Which is interesting then so Luke Beveridge, the senior coach, is then asked to weigh in, and obviously he had this to say.
What's happened with the bedding down of the illicit drug policy, which the Players Association were complicit in with the AFL, none of us really feel it works. And essentially any player with a clinically diagnosed mental health challenge will never be exposed to the policy anyway, because you regardless of when you're tested or how often you're tested, you're always going to get a pass. So that's a real I suppose, chink in the actual process. So, look, I mean, it needs to be reviewed all the time. I'm a big believer that it should disappear.
disappear altogether.
Yeah.
What's-
He also did say it needs to be revised, and I think that's probably more the point. So, I mean, if you scrap it, so you scrap it all together and it's a free-for-all?
Yeah, well, that's my point. Is there an alternative
Well, it
being put
depends.
forward?
It depends what you want to achieve out of it. And the players in the AFLPA need to own that, because they're the ones that need to sign off on it ultimately. So do you want to be an aspirational where you almost protect players from themselves, in which case it would be a lot harsher? Because the fact that we've had one 3-strike situation in 20 years or however long the policies existed is exactly what Luke Beveridge
Or do we
is
want them to follow the law and not do drugs? Mate?
Yeah, well, that's right. If you want to be aspirational...
If you want to be an elite sportsman and you want to play at this level with everything that comes with it, then guess what? You're just going to have to park your want to do drugs.
Yep.
But
I know that's a simplistic and realistic, but there would be members of the society out there going, hey, don't make excuses. Let's just say... It's incumbent upon the responsibility of being an AFL footballer is you don't take drugs.
I've been saying it should be tighter for years, guys, and getting my head
zero
kicked off.
tight?
Well, again, it depends how strong the players and the PA want to be in protecting themselves.
How strong are you, Go? You're in charge of the AFL.
Well, I do think people make mistakes, and so to one strike and you're out would be...
Jeff Kennett, I think, is along those lines. Let's have a listen to him.
Too harsh.
Let's not have a listen to him. Let's have a read of it. The drugs policy has always been unworkable. I argue by having a zero tolerance policy, we're potentially protecting their lives. I think the penalty has got to be sufficient for the individual to realise the error of their ways. This means suspension and no pay. I think it's got to be for 2 years. So he's suspension for 2 years.
That's extreme. That's extreme.
Well, he has seen. Look, I suppose he comes from an understanding of mental illness because he was the chairman.
Yeah, no one better placed to talk about that.
Absolutely. So the challenge is people can make mistakes, especially younger people, and where a lot of the positive tests come from is from a night on the drink. You know, so we all know that we don't make the best decisions when we've had a big night, and that's the challenge. Even though a player has potential 2-year sacking hanging out of their head or a strike, they don't consider that when they're full of drink.
So I'll ask you guys, in this, let's play it out in real time. So the Bailey Smith situation, under that suggestion, he would be gone from the game for 2 years. He's contrite, he's on the front foot, he's apologetic, he's owned it. Yep. Would you like to see a player like that get another opportunity? Yeah,
I would. I wouldn't. Yeah, I struggle with this. Yeah. Like, I think that, and then you got the incidents of blokes, and you don't. Drink spiking, all those sort of things come into play, and then you're going to be dragged through the courts. I don't know. It's a hard one for me.
Yeah. And there is a real element of mental health that flows through this as well. But I think so. Luke Beveridge, he's at the coalface, and the insinuation, without putting words in his mouth, was that some people hide behind that and then aren't exposed to the rigours of the actual strike policy. Yeah. So
and some people don't,
and some people don't. There is some genuine cases within that.
Well, we'll watch with great interest. I don't profess to have any great answer right now, but it's a discussion that's going to be had and will continue to be had.